Hey Rick, this is Connor Murray calling from X Company. How are you? Good. I'm just reaching out because I'm part of the strategic construction team here that supports Y Company regarding financial cloud applications and processes. And we typically work with organizations on priorities related to strategic planning, financial reporting, and data management, usually by reducing the reliance on Excel and centralizing the planning process. And I know I kind of called you out of the blue here, so I'm more just looking to set aside some time to introduce you to our team and get aligned with your priorities going forward. Are you free next week on Wednesday or Thursday? All right, how to deliver a cold call value statement. In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 simple steps to a cold call value statement so that you can start using these on your own and why they're a lot better than the typical cold call script I see out there. I'm also going to take you through the key characteristics of a value statement that make it different than a cold call script. And I'm also going to show you another example with a couple advanced techniques at the end. So let's get into it. So on the surface, a value statement actually sounds pretty similar to a cold call script. There's just a few key distinctions that make it a lot more effective, especially as we head into 2024. The typical cold call script is usually centered around first getting permission and asking a permission-based opener to continue. And then once you continue, it's normally taught that you want to ask open-ended, qualifying questions that get the prospect talking, even though you haven't delivered any value yet and you just interrupted them out of the blue in the middle of their workday when they probably have a million other things going on. So the 3 key steps to a value statement are first to neutralize the opening, which I'm going to talk about in a sec, deliver who you are, why you're calling, and what you want, ideally within the first 60 seconds of the call. And then there's only 3 possible outcomes that you need to be prepared for. Once you deliver this who, why, what value statement, they either can say yes, they can give you a hard no, which includes being hung up on, or they give you an objection, in which case be prepared for the most common objections and double down on what you want, which is time on their calendar. You don't have to sell your entire value proposition on and off the cuff cold call. You can save that for the discovery call and sell time here. So first, what do I mean by neutralize the opening? What I'm talking about is eliminating variance. This is why I don't like permission-based openers, because you can say something like, hey, did I catch you at a bad time, or do you have 27 seconds to talk to me? And there's a million different answers and a million different directions that could go. What I want from them is a formality. I want to elicit a formality from them so that I can take control and move forward from there. So the way I do that is by saying, how are you? But the key is the tone and the downward inflection that I use that signals, hey, I just want a formality. Give me a quick formality back, and then I will go right into why I'm calling. So I said, hey, Rick, this is Connor Murray calling from X Company. How are you? That's a lot different than, hey Rick, this is Connor Murray calling from X Company. How are you today? That second one that I just did signals that you're not here to be brief and you're actually expecting them to elaborate on their day here. The downward inflection, hey Rick, this is Connor Murray calling from X Company. How are you? Pretty much all they can say to that is give me a formality back. They can say, good, how are you? They can even sound a little confused, but that's okay because I'm going to take control from there and immediately start delivering who I am, why I'm calling, what I want. Another key aspect of this is be prepared for some of the most common mini objections that you get. So a lot of times you say, hey Rick, this is Connor Murray, call from X Company. How are you? And they say, good. Where'd you say you were calling from? And then I'll neutralize it by saying, yeah, I'm calling from X Company. I'm just reaching out because, and then I go right into who, why, what. So no matter what they give you, the goal is to neutralize it so that you can get into step 2 here, which is who you are, why you're calling, what you want. So the who you are is however you describe yourself. In the example I gave at the beginning, I was calling into the construction industry and specifically someone in finance. So I said I was part of the strategic construction team and then named 3 priorities that I knew would be relevant to someone in finance. I said strategic planning, financial reporting, and data management. This is pretty transferable to almost any person that you're calling in finance. Those are going to be important priorities to them. But why you're calling is the value, how you can help them, how you help similar people at similar companies in their industry, and what outcomes you've achieved for them. This is the most important part to the value statement. In the example I gave, I named those important priorities and then said we do this, we achieve this by reducing the reliance on Excel and centralizing the planning process. This is going to be based on your research about the industry or the company. What are the most common challenges that they face? And you want to name those in your value statement. And then the last important piece is you have to tell them what you want, which is time on their calendar. A lot of SDRs are too hesitant and skip this step, but you don't give yourself a chance or a shot on net of booking the meeting unless you state your intent, which is what you want. And once you do that, you tell them who you are, why you're calling, and here's what I want, time on your calendar, and you've gotten that out. There's only 3 possible outcomes. They could either say, yeah, sure, Connor, I'm free next Wednesday, which is best case scenario. Or they could say, nope, thanks, I'm all good, click, and you don't even have a chance. That's a hard no. Or they can give you an objection like, hey, Connor, thanks for reaching out, but we actually already use a competitive solution, so I don't think it makes sense to me. And then you can be prepared for those most common objections. So those are the 3 key steps, but I also want to talk about the key characteristics of a value statement and how it differs from the typical cold call scripts that I see taught out there. The first key difference being that we took control, we did most of the talking, and we led the call. This is a lot different than cold call scripts where they usually lead off with qualifying questions. They might tell them who you are, and then they say, do you have any initiatives or priorities in these areas? Is this top of mind for you? Meanwhile, you just interrupted them out of the blue and you haven't earned or built any trust yet. They don't know who you are. I don't know about you. I still get cold calls sometimes, and while I am respectful, I want to let them get out what they have to say, and I honestly give back feedback a lot of the times. My first assumption is, this person probably can't help me, because I can usually tell by their tone they're not confident, and then they just start asking me questions, and in my head I'm like, I gotta get on a call with one of my reps or one of my customers in 5 minutes. I don't have time to just sit here and answer questions all day. So what I say is you wanna hijack that bias and take control, deliver value at the beginning of the call. And this is how you do it. You tell them who you are, why you're calling, what you want. Because when a prospect's day has been interrupted, they picked up your cold call, subconsciously, those are the 3 things that are going on in their head. Who is this person? Why are they calling me? And do they want anything from me, or what do they want from me? You have to satisfy these 3 requirements, and that will get the prospect to drop that defensive tone and drop their guard, and it's going to make the rest of the cold call a lot easier because you've built value and you've built trust right out of the gate. The next key to this is that you want to be using an assumptive tonality, which is defined by a downward inflection throughout the entire cold call. There's 2 key pieces where this starts. The first is that opening. That's how you neutralize the opening, is you use that downward inflection at the opening. I call it an assumptive formality. Hey Rick, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you? That's an assumptive tone. That's saying, hey, just give me a quick formality back and then I'm going to go right into why I'm calling. They're the ones who answered the phone. They signaled by picking up the phone that they have time to talk. That's why I don't think you need to ask permission. The other key area this assumptive tone comes into play, and this is critical, is when it comes to asking for time on their calendar. The what. You say, I'm looking to set up some time, or let's set up some time next week. Are you free on Wednesday or Thursday? It is 10 times better than saying, if you're interested, I'd love to set up some time, or if possible, or if you're free. Those little caveats, which are subconscious, but so many SDRs do it, and I did it when I was new, it turns your assumptive tone into passive language, and it makes it really easy for the prospect to say no. It makes the path of least resistance for them to say no, where if you maintain the assumptive tonality, the path of least resistance is for them to say yes, because now they have to break your assumption. It makes it just a little bit harder, it adds just a little bit more resistance, but it dramatically improves your results if you're able to maintain that assumptive tone and use assumptive language. The third key characteristic is that value statements allow you to be targeted at scale because you're limiting variance at the opening and you're taking control. Now when they say hello, you know exactly how the next 60 seconds are going to play out. This is a lot different than cold call scripts that start with permission-based openers, then move into open-ended qualifying questions where who knows what their answer is going to be. It could go in a million different directions. And for new SDRs especially, it's when they lose that control and they go off script that tonality gets worse, they move from assumptive to passive, and it becomes a lot harder to book the meeting. Value statements allow you to be targeted at scale because you can maintain this structure, but depending on who you're calling, you can change those key words. So in this example, I was calling into a finance person in the construction industry. If all of a sudden I moved to a different industry, say now I was calling into life science or manufacturing, I could keep that exact same script, that exact same value statement, but instead of saying I'm part of the strategic construction team, now I can say I'm part of the strategic life science team or the strategic manufacturing team, whatever industry you're calling. So this helps you stay targeted, but helps you move fast. It helps you stay targeted at scale. You can also change those priorities. Let's say I wasn't calling into someone in finance anymore. Now I was going to start calling a bunch of HR people. Instead of naming priorities like strategic planning and financial reporting, I might name priorities like recruitment strategy, accelerating the onboarding process, people analytics. So I can keep that structure but move fast at the same time. The fourth key characteristic that makes value statements effective and so much easier than the typical cold call script is that you're focused on selling time. You're not focused as much on qualifying. I think a lot of SDRs have these unfair expectations thrown on them where they're essentially expected to run a mini discovery call on and off the cuff cold call. They're expected to run these 5, 10, 15-minute calls where they ask a bunch of open-ended qualifying questions, uncover a bunch of information before setting that meeting for the account executive. But sometimes all you can do is book that meeting. And it's not sometimes, it's most of the time. Most of the time you're interrupting very busy people with other priorities going on, and they don't want to talk about your random solution or whatever competitive solution they're on and talk about moving off of that or anything. Sometimes they just want to know, who are you? Why are you calling? What do you want? If it's important, or if it sounds important enough or enough value, then they'll set aside 15, 20, 30 minutes at a later date. And then you can be prepared to go into all of that on that call. I would rather be going into that on a discovery call. I think I have a better chance of delivering my value proposition in a complete and full way there than a random off-the-cuff cold call when who knows what emotional state they're in. And the selling time extends into objection handling. So if they don't give you a yes, if they don't give you a no, and they say, hey, we already work with a competitor, I don't think it makes sense to meet, I don't start pitching them on why my solution is better than that competitor, or asking them questions about that competitor, if it's what it is on a scale of 1 to 10 and what we need to do to get it to a 10. That's what's normally taught. I more double down and I sell the time. I'd say, got it. Yeah, that's actually why I was reaching out. We work with customers of X competitor all the time. So if there's ever a fit, we can move ahead. But I think it at least makes sense to get introduced and aligned with your priorities going forward, because it'll be our team supporting you for the foreseeable future. So does Wednesday or Thursday work for you? I doubled down and sold the time because that's a much easier task. They also didn't object to my solution. They objected to the meeting request I had because they work with a competitor already. So I wanted to double down and sell why that meeting was still worth it. And it's more congruent with what I asked for. All right, now I want to move into some of these more advanced techniques as you get more comfortable with value statements and progress. A lot of people bring up, hey, Connor, I get the value statement, but that's a lot to get out all at once, the who you are, why you're calling, and then going into what you want. And I say, understood. The reason I teach it this way, especially to new SDRs, is mostly because of this what piece. Most SDRs are too hesitant to actually get right into what they want, which is time on their calendar. And you literally have a 0% chance of booking the meeting if you don't do that. So I first coach reps, learn how to ask for time on their calendar, get on the playing field, and learn to increase that percent chance you have at booking the meeting. Get better at stating what you want, get better at delivering those value statements. But as you get more advanced, you can keep that bullet in the chamber, that what you want in your back pocket, and just start off by telling them who you are and why you're calling, and truly finishing with a statement. So you can tell them who you are and then say, we typically work with organizations on priorities related to strategic planning, financial reporting, and data management, usually by reducing the reliance on Excel and centralizing the planning process, any of these areas. And then you just pause and you let them respond to that and get a gauge for what they thought. You basically finish with a statement and truly make a value statement, basically saying, here's who I am and why I'm important to you. What do you have to say about that? And then usually there's a couple different outcomes. They could either say, oh yeah, great, thanks for reaching out. What'd you say your name was? And then if I get the sense they have a positive response to it, I'll then go into what I want. I'll say, yeah, great, my name's Connor Murray, maybe give them my contact info, and then go into, and I know I kind of called you out of the blue here, so I was more just looking to set up some time to get introduced and aligned with your priorities going forward, and then go into asking for time on their calendar because I know they got that positive response to it. Or they could just go right into their objection and say, we already work with a competitor, or we just don't have the time or bandwidth right now, there's other priorities. And now I know what I need to overcome before I went into asking for time on their calendar. And the other advanced technique is to either finish by asking a question or delivering a statement that's meant to get them to say yes. So after telling them you do this by reducing the reliance on Excel and centralizing the planning process, you can say, and yeah, given your role, I wanted to reach out and confirm that these priorities are top of mind and being discussed at your organization. And then just seeing what they respond to that. Most of the time they're gonna say, yeah, most finance people are gonna have those priorities in mind. That's why you wanna name big, broad priorities that they almost can't say no to. It's like, yeah, no, we're not focused on strategic planning or financial reporting as a finance organization. It's like, well, what are you doing then? And getting that first yes can subconsciously boost their chances of saying yes when you then eventually go into what you want, which is time on their calendar. So hope this gets you thinking about cold calling a little differently and the tools you need to restructure your cold call scripts into cold call value statements. If it did, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.